What's up guys, Dr. Claw V3 here to teach you how to build the Primetime Draven Spinning Axe from the League of Legends. For this build you'll need some plywood, an assortment of 16 small screws, a ball bearing swivel also known as a Lazy Susan, EVA foam core boards, some electrical tape, scissors and a box cutter, spray and acrylic paint, a power drill and drill bits, a heat gun and hot glue gun, sanding utensils, Sharpies, and of course safety glasses. You will also need a jigsaw, but I just didn't have that for the filming purposes. You will first need to cut the wood into these shapes. Use the Lazy Susan's ball bearing on the inside to measure the inner diameter and the outside corners to measure the outer diameter. Once that's done, you will then need one pole in the middle of one of them to support the main piece of the blade. Using the Lazy Susan as a guide, make 4 dots for where you're going to drill into the wood in order to attach it onto the first piece of the blade. Measure the drill size that you need in order to correctly screw each piece in and then drill through each hole. Once that's done, go ahead and attach the Lazy Susan like so, and take one of these exterior holes and use it to mark a small guide into the wood. You will use this guide to drill through here in order to attach the Lazy Susan to the next piece of wood. So make sure that this hole that you drill is the same size as the head of the screw that you're putting through, otherwise this will not work. Once that's done, you will now be rotating the Lazy Susan to the proper area alignment and taking not this piece, but actually the circular piece and attaching it in. The reason for this is the Draven blade actually has 2 handles in this model. I'll tell you why that is later on. So, when you're drilling this in, make sure you drill one hole, take this hole and rotate it to the next area of the Lazy Susan. Don't drill 4 holes. This will make drilling a lot simpler and make the design a lot sturdier. Once you have that attached, you'll notice the screws poke out a little bit on all of them. If you use smaller screws, that'll just fix. We are now going to move on to the next segment of working on this, and that is actually the handles. What you're going to want to do for the handles is take a very long strip of electrical tape and actually wrap it like around the inside of it. Coil it around the handle. You're going to want this for grip, and you're also going to want this so that your hand is not hitting wood when it spins. That will hurt. Once you have the 2 of those handles wrapped up nicely, it is now time to attach them to the main mechanism of the blade. Now if you notice, the screws are still sticking out of these ends. A simple way to get rid of that would be to drill a hole in this very slightly for each screw to rest. Now, you may be asking yourself, how are you going to guide that? Well, it's simple. You lay it down flat and you hit it. That should cut small holes into it where you will then work. Once you've got that all nice and squared away so that it fits down, you're going to want to put 4 holes and drill. However, before you do that, you will notice that on the other side there are also a little bit of drill holes. You want to do the same exact thing to this other handle. Just lay it down, punch it, and drill whatever holes you get from there. As you can see, I've gone ahead and marked 4 holes where I'll be putting the drills in. However, make sure that you do not put them in the same area that other drill bits already are. That will mess things up, so be careful. What I like to do is, since there's 4 here, I know that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 in between them. So just try and keep them within each other. Once you've done that, you'll notice that one blade sits here and holds the main piece steady, while the other handle of the blade allows it to spin with your hand in between. Catching both handles will lock it. That extra little space in between the 2 handles provided by these buffers in the Lazy Susan allow you to successfully roll it. Also keep in mind, right now I'm building a left-handed blade, which means everything I've just done is for the left hand. To make a right-handed blade, simply take all these next instructions and do them opposite, because it's still the same mechanism. Next, take EVA foam and cut these 2 shapes out. You may want to pause the video to realize the size of these shapes, as I had to fit the first one diagonally, which becomes the main blade, and the second one you have to measure the internal piece of because it becomes the microphone. You'll want to cut the larger one twice and the smaller one only once. Now that you have these pieces cut out, which will eventually become the blades and the top of the microphone, we still need to cut the inside of the blades out so that they have a support system. Using one of the blade segments, I went ahead and marked out these two pieces that I will now cut out for the center part of the blade. This will hold it all together and hold it to the backbone that is the spinning axe. Now that you've cut all the pieces out, it's time for the fun part, the hot glue. Now, as you remember me saying earlier, this is the left-handed spinning blade, so I'm going to be putting my piece on like this, where the rotator is in the inside, so I can properly rotate it without hitting my body. If you wanted to do a right-handed blade, simply turn the piece over and glue it on the opposite side. The mechanism, again, is still the same, but you're going to want to make it so that the rotating part is inside when you spin it and the blade facing this way. To start, glue these two pieces together to the blade like so. This is actually one piece. This is not the support beams, if you notice that. The other part is that weird, mysterious looking thing I cut a little while back. It'll become the microphone on the end of the blade. Remember, this is primetime Draven, not standard. However, the spinning mechanism will work with any blade and it will hold it together safely. As long as you keep the blade around it and triple layer it, everything will be fine. Next up, you're going to want to take these smaller parts that we cut out from earlier that are the supports and glue them on down. Glue them both to the blade and to the center mainframe via the inside, so that way everything sits together all nice and snug. Now that you have those pieces glued down, it's going to be time to glue the last and final piece of the main blade over the top so that it all sits down together and it should be nice and smooth. When you have this, it'll be a triple layered blade. Remember, this will be heavy and this will also be very sturdy. Do not try and use this to hit people. This is a fair warning. I am not responsible for any injuries that happen due to people using this blade to its false intentions. You are then going to want to cut out two pieces that look about like this and cut a 45-degree angle along the edges. These will act like the main piece that goes around the microphone, so make sure it's slightly smaller than the microphone piece at the top that you have. You will then make this same shape twice again, but slightly smaller to go on the top. This adds a good dimension and makes it look a little bit more rounded. Now that you have these pieces and their smaller counterparts all cut out, it is now time to glue them all together to the main part of the blade. Now that you have that properly assembled to the piece on both sides, it will look a little bit more like a microphone. Albeit it's not perfect, but it adds the 3D effect. Next up, you're going to want to cut 6 of these pieces out and 6 of those pieces out. And keep in mind, these are the same size as those. These have a little 45-degree angle cut in all of them and all that stuff. To get these pieces, I simply used one of these parts of the foam. It's one of the outer rims. I cut those pieces out from there and then cut along the edges to make these. This is actually going to go around this part of the blade and add a little bit of an added detail to it. Next, you're going to want to cut a bunch of little strips of the EVA foam. Make sure these two are a good size, these are going to be small, these are going to be a little bit larger, these are going to be really small, and these are going to be larger than those. This piece in the center is going to be larger than everything in the sense that it's three-dimensional, and these are mostly flat. I'll show you how to attach them so that it looks proper. This is actually going to be the part on his blade that allows him to function the sound and mess with the frequencies. Yeah. So as you can see, I've gone ahead and attached these pieces while I was getting the scraps together, and we're going to be putting the scraps on here. It's going to go a little something like this. Small piece, larger piece, then this piece, the largest piece will go about right there, and then finally this piece will go in the middle. I realize now I cut this a little bit too large because it's supposed to overlay and all be square. I'll fix that in a second. When you're done, it'll look a little something like this. Bear with me, I'm not in the band, I'm no musician, I don't know what this little thing is called. All I know is what it does, and it just allows you to change stuff with noise. I have no musical bone in my body, so I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm just making an axe. Once you have that piece in, you want to cut 2 more little tiny slivers that we're going to be attaching right here to make the main another support thing there. I don't know. Leave the textured side up. That helps with the effect. Now that you have those in, take out your razor pen and you're going to start drawing the designs that are then seen in different colors on his blade. what you're going to want to do is make a very small incision. Maybe that much or that much. Don't actually go through it. We're going to use the heat gun in a moment to heat it up, and it will actually separate the pattern and make it look a lot thicker than it actually is. Now that I've made a small incision into the blade, I'm going to take my heat gun, put it onto a low temperature, and very carefully go over it. This will create a crease in the blade, or the foam rather, that will actually expand a little bit and dry that way, or harden that way, whatever you want to say. So yeah. This is a very tedious process, by the way. Once you've done that, the blade will actually have permanent creases in it that will later on be painted around. This will actually add detail and depth to the piece in the fact that this crease is indeed permanent and is slightly indented. Do that on both sides for the main area, and these pieces will be eventually painted red. That was it for this video. If you enjoyed, like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for the part 2 of this, where we will actually be painting the blade to look a little bit more like this. As always, I am Dr. Paul V3, and I will see you in the next video.